I'm Lucy, with an enviable marriage to the considerate and wealthy Tom. However, at work, I have frequent contact with the handsome male colleague Jack, and I have developed other feelings. It seems that this seemingly happy marriage is being shaken by this secretive emotion. At the office, I have always been the focus of everyone's attention. My long, wavy blonde hair shines like the sun, and it sways gently with my every step, exuding a faint lavender fragrance. My blue eyes are like the deep Mediterranean Sea, always sparkling with intelligent light, making people feel as if they are about to be sucked into the blue. I am tall and graceful, and wearing a slim-fitting professional outfit shows off my curvy figure to the fullest. Every day when I walk into the office, the high heels make a crisp sound on the polished floor, attracting the attention of many colleagues. But I have never paid any attention to these stares until Jack appeared. Jack is a new colleague in our department. He has short black hair, three-dimensional and deep features, and especially those eyes, always with a faint smile, which makes people feel warm and charming. He is tall and straight, and wearing a suit with a tailored fit, which makes him look exceptionally handsome. Since he joined our department, we have had frequent contact due to work. At first, it was just a simple work handover and discussion, but as our cooperation deepened, our exchanges gradually increased. Once, the company arranged an urgent project that required a large amount of data collation and analysis to be completed within a short period of time. I was overwhelmed with work alone, and I could see the deadline getting closer and closer, so I was extremely anxious. Jack noticed my dilemma and came over to me, saying softly, "Lucy, let me help you." His voice was low and full of charm, and at that moment, an inexplicable warm current welled up in my heart. We worked overtime together until late at night, and the office was so quiet that it was only the sound of the keyboard and the occasional soft conversation. During this process, I discovered that he was very capable and quick-thinking, and many of the problems that I found difficult were easily solved by him. When we finally finished our work and looked up, we realized that it was already dark outside. I rubbed my sore eyes and looked at him gratefully. "Jack, thank you so much today. If you hadn't helped, I really don't know what I would have done." He looked at me with a smile and a hint of tenderness in his eyes. "You're welcome. We're all colleagues, and it's only right to help each other. Besides, I'm very happy working with you." At that moment, our eyes met, and my heart suddenly skipped a beat, and a strange feeling welled up in my heart. I quickly averted my gaze and frantically packed up the documents on the table, mumbling, "It's getting late. Let's go." Since then, our relationship seems to have become even closer. Outside of work, we also occasionally chat about things in life. I've discovered that we have many common interests, such as watching old movies and going for walks at the beach on the weekends. One weekend, I went to the beach for a walk as usual. Unexpectedly, I met Jack at the beach. He looked exceptionally fresh in a casual white t-shirt and jeans, holding a book in his hands. He saw me and gave a surprised smile. "Lucy, what a coincidence. I didn't expect to run into you here." We walked along the beach together, the soft sand beneath our feet and the waves lapping the shore. We chatted as we walked, from movies to music, from work to dreams. The sun shone down on us, and for a moment I felt like time had stopped. When we reached a quiet corner, Jack suddenly stopped and looked at me intently. "Lucy, I feel like I could talk to you forever. You are a very special girl." My face flushed, and my heart pounded like a rabbit in my chest. I didn't know how to reply, so I could only lower my head and whisper, "You are also very special, Jack." From then on, the atmosphere between us became more and more delicate. At the office, our eyes would always unconsciously seek each other out, and every time our gazes met, there would be an imperceptible spark. I tried hard to restrain my feelings, telling myself that I already had Tom and couldn't have any improper thoughts about Jack. But how can you control your feelings? Every day at work, I look forward to seeing Jack and hearing his voice. And he is always there for me when I need him. Once, I encountered a problem at work that I couldn't solve. I was so anxious that tears were welling up in my eyes when Jack came over to me. He patted my shoulder gently and said, "Don't worry, Lucy. Let's figure it out together." His hand on my shoulder was warm and firm, and it made me feel instantly at ease. We discussed it together for a long time and finally found a way to solve the problem. When the problem was solved, I jumped up excitedly and hugged Jack. "Thank you so much, Jack. You're wonderful." Holding him, I realized my own emotional outburst and quickly let go, my face flushing. Jack was also a little embarrassed, but he quickly recovered his composure and said with a smile, "It's okay, as long as I can help." As time passed, my feelings for Jack grew deeper and deeper, and every day I spent in this kind of conflict and confusion. I knew this couldn't go on, but I couldn't control my feelings in any way. This secret feeling was like a seed that took root and sprouted in my heart, growing wildly, and I seemed to have gradually lost my way. I started to dream about Jack, in which we strolled together on the beach. He looked at me tenderly and gently took my hand. Every time I woke up from such a dream, I felt a sense of loss and guilt. I looked at the sleeping Tom beside me, full of self-blame, but when I saw Jack again, all reason was thrown out of the window. My colleagues at work seemed to have noticed the change in our relationship, and some gossip started to spread. Some said that we had an affair, while others said that I had betrayed Tom. Hearing these rumors made me angry and anxious, but I didn't know how to explain it. Jack also noticed the rumors, and he found me to say seriously, "Lucy, don't pay attention to those rumors. We are just normal colleagues. But if you feel troubled, we can keep a proper distance." His words made my heart ache. I suddenly realized that I didn't want to keep our distance. I looked into his eyes and gathered my courage to say, "Jack, I don't care about those rumors. I don't want to keep our distance." After saying this, I felt a sense of relief, but also a little scared. I didn't know how Jack would respond to me, so I could only nervously watch him. A flash of surprise crossed Jack's eyes. He gently took my hand and said, "Lucy, I've actually liked you since the first time I saw you. I know you're married and I don't want to cause you any trouble, but I really can't control my feelings." At that moment, my heart was in a complete mess. I knew that I had completely fallen into this unwanted relationship, and the future seemed full of uncertainty and confusion. Caught between this sudden love and years of marriage, I was in a deep struggle, not knowing how to choose. Ever since I became aware of my uncontrollable feelings for Jack, my life has been in an endless struggle. During the day, when I was with Jack at the office, I couldn't help but look at him with a hint of panic and shyness in my eyes. And the way he looks at me is always gentle and affectionate, which makes my heart beat faster. When our hands accidentally touch during work breaks, the brief contact makes my whole body tingle like electricity, and my face instantly turns red. But every time this happens, the image of my husband Tom always comes to mind, the man who has been by my side for many years and who has given me meticulous care. At night, when I lie in bed, everything around me falls silent, but my thoughts are like a runaway horse, uncontrollable. Jack's handsome face and gentle words always flash through my mind. The help he gave me at work, the time we spent together, every detail is unforgettable to me. I can almost see him smiling as he walks towards me, reaching out to gently smooth the hair around my ears. But just when I'm lost in my thoughts of Jack, Tom's face suddenly appears in my mind. I remember the sweetness of our early marriage, the good times we spent together, the birthday surprises he prepared for me, and the meticulous care he gave me when I was sick. His thoughtfulness and wealth have given me an enviable marriage, but I have unknowingly fallen in love with another man. This internal conflict and struggle made me suffer terribly. I asked myself over and over again in my heart, what do I really want? Is it the passion and freshness that Jack brings to me, or the long-term companionship and stability that Tom gives me? I know that I can't have both and I have to make a choice, but this choice is really difficult for me. Once, the company organized a team-building activity. During the activity, Jack always deliberately or unintentionally approached me, his eyes full of concern and love. When we played games together, he held my hand tightly, and at that moment, my heart once again lost its rhythm. I could feel the strange stares of my colleagues around me, but I couldn't break away from his hand, and I didn't want to. However, just then, I saw Tom in the distance. He was worried about me and had come to pick me up from work. He stood there, looking at me and Jack with a hint of confusion and unease on his face. My heart sank as if someone had given me a sharp blow. I quickly let go of Jack's hand and walked towards Tom. On the way home, Tom didn't say anything, but I could feel that his mood was a little low. I wanted to explain, but I didn't know where to start. I could only sit silently next to him, my heart full of guilt. When I got home, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. I thought about the way Jack looked at me during the team-building activity. It was a look full of longing and affection, one I could not resist. But then I thought about Tom's lost expression. He trusted me so much, and I let him down. I began to recall the life I shared with Tom, the days of simple but warm happiness. Together, we worked hard for our family and experienced the joys and sorrows of life together. He is my husband, the person I once vowed to be with for the rest of my life. But now, I have been shaken in my resolve by the appearance of Jack. I also remember the kindness Jack has shown me, his help when I was having trouble at work, his comfort when I was feeling down. He has made me feel a passion and vitality that I haven't felt in a long time and has allowed me to rediscover that feeling of excitement. But I know that his feelings may not be as pure as I would like. After all, our relationship is based on the fact that I am married. This internal struggle is exhausting me more and more, and I'm becoming increasingly anxious. At work, I'm always distracted and making mistakes at work. My colleagues have noticed something's wrong with me and are casting concerned glances my way, but I can't tell them about my suffering. I tried to calm myself down and think rationally about the relationship. I told myself that I could not ruin my marriage with Tom after so many years because of a momentary impulse. But every time I saw Jack, all rationality disappeared. One night, I was sitting alone in the living room, looking at the night sky outside the window, and tears flowed down my face involuntarily. I felt like a person trapped in a maze, unable to find an exit and unsure of which direction to go. Just then, Tom came over and sat silently beside me, hugging me in his arms. He didn't say a word, just patted my back gently. At that moment, I felt his warmth and acceptance. I leaned on his shoulder and cried even harder. I knew I couldn't go on like this. I had to make a decision as soon as possible to end this painful struggle, but this decision is really too difficult for me. I am torn between Jack's passion and Tom's affection, and I don't know how to choose. The future path seems to have become even more confused and difficult. I began to be afraid to face Jack, and every time I saw him, I would deliberately avoid him. But my heart couldn't help wanting to get close to him. I was also afraid to face Tom. I felt that I owed him an apology and couldn't look him in the eye with his trusting gaze. This internal struggle lasted for a long time, and I felt like I was about to be driven to breaking point. I knew that I couldn't keep avoiding it, that I had to bravely face my feelings and make a decision that was responsible for myself, for Tom, and for Jack. But I still didn't have an answer as to what choice to make, and I could only continue to suffer in this painful struggle. Days passed as I struggled internally, torn between Jack and Tom, and suffering terribly. On the surface, I tried to maintain a normal routine at work and at home, but only I knew that my heart was already full of holes. It was a normal workday, and the sunlight shone through the office blinds, casting dappled shadows on the floor. As usual, I was going to discuss some work matters with Jack. When I got to his desk, I found that he wasn't there, but his phone was on the desktop, the screen lit up and vibrating slightly. My footsteps stopped involuntarily, and my gaze was drawn to the flashing screen. I told myself that I shouldn't be looking at someone else's phone, that it was unethical. But for some reason, a strong sense of curiosity drove me on, and I couldn't move. Just as I hesitated, a new message popped up. I only glanced at it casually, but the ambiguous text was like a sharp blade, instantly piercing my eyes. The content of the message was full of intimacy and provocation, and the sender was not me. My heart sank, and my hands trembled uncontrollably. I looked at the message in disbelief, my mind going blank. I had thought that the relationship between Jack and I was special, different from all the rest, but what I was seeing now mercilessly shattered my illusions. I stood there, as if the whole world had stopped turning. The sounds of my colleagues' conversations and the tapping of keyboards gradually became blurred. Images of Jack getting close to other female colleagues kept popping up in my mind, like nightmares, making me feel extremely sick and angry. I clenched my fists, my fingernails digging into my palms, but I felt no pain. I suddenly realized that the relationship I had been in was so ridiculous and absurd. I had struggled with morality and emotions for Jack, while he had been involved with multiple female colleagues behind my back. It took a long time for me to come back to my senses. I decided to find out the truth and see what kind of person Jack really was. I started going through his phone messages, and my heart grew colder with each one. It turned out that he was having an affair with several female colleagues at the same time, telling each of them the same sweet nothings and promising them the same future. I felt completely played. The feelings I had for him were probably just a game to him. My eyes were filled with tears of anger, sadness, and remorse. I hated myself for being so stupid, for being fooled by his sweet words, and for betraying Tom, who had always loved me. Just then, Jack came back. He saw me standing in front of his workstation, holding his phone in my hand, and his smile instantly froze. A flash of panic crossed his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. "Lucy, what are you doing?" His voice sounded a little nervous. I looked at him, my eyes full of disgust and anger. "Jack, how could you? What do you take me for?" He tried to explain. "Lucy, let me explain, it's not what you think." But I didn't want to hear his explanation at all. I interrupted him and said, "Enough, Jack. I don't want to hear any more excuses from you. I was really blind to fall in love with someone like you." After that, I threw the phone hard on his desk and turned around and left. I heard him shouting my name behind me, but I didn't turn back. I didn't want to see his hypocritical face anymore. I returned to my seat and leaned over the table, unable to stop the tears from flowing. My colleagues all cast strange looks at me, but I no longer cared. I just felt that my dignity had been trampled underfoot by him, and I felt extremely ashamed of my actions. The whole afternoon, I was immersed in pain and self-blame. I kept thinking back to the little moments I spent with Jack, those moments that once made my heart flutter, now seem so ironic. I realized that I almost ruined my marriage and family because of my impulsiveness. It was time to go home from work, and I walked out of the office with a heavy heart. As I walked home, the sunset's rays shone on me, but I felt no warmth. I knew I had to make a change, and I couldn't go on like this. When I got home, Tom had already finished preparing dinner and was waiting for me at the table. Seeing me come in, he smiled at me tenderly as usual. "Lucy, you're home, come and eat." Looking at his concerned eyes, my heart ached. I couldn't hold back any longer and threw myself into his arms, bursting into tears. Tom was taken aback by my actions, and he held me tightly, gently reassuring me. "Lucy, what's wrong? What's happened? Don't scare me." I told him everything that had happened between Jack and me. I cried as I spoke, my heart filled with guilt and fear. I was afraid that Tom would leave me because of my betrayal, and I was afraid of losing my family. Tom didn't speak immediately after hearing my confession. He was silent for a while, then gently stroked my hair and said, "Lucy, I know you've been suffering a lot recently, and I can feel the changes in you. But I believe you, I know you didn't do it on purpose." His words made me feel incredibly surprised and touched. I looked up and looked into his eyes, and I found that there was not a trace of anger or blame in them, only a lot of love and tolerance. "Tom, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I will never do it again," I said chokingly. Tom smiled and nodded. "It's okay, Lucy, as long as you come back. We will face it together and forget this unpleasant experience together." At that moment, I finally understood that true love can withstand the test of time and is long-lasting companionship and tolerance. I decided to completely let go of my feelings for Jack, return to my family, and cherish the man who deeply loved me. And this unexpected discovery also completely woke me up and allowed me to regain my direction in life. After confessing to Tom everything that had happened between Jack and me, I felt as if all my energy had been drained, and I sat on the sofa, paralyzed, my heart full of trepidation and unease. I lowered my head, afraid to look into Tom's eyes as I contemplated his possible reactions: rebuke, anger, disappointment. Time seemed to have come to a standstill. Tom didn't speak immediately, and the room was so quiet that I could hear my heart beating. I peeked up and saw that although there was a hint of hurt in his eyes, there was also a sense of calm and understanding. He let out a soft sigh, then walked over to me and sat down, pulling me into his arms. "Lucy, I know you've been suffering a lot recently, and I could sense that something was wrong. But I believe in you, and I know that you are fundamentally a kind person who has just temporarily lost their way." Tom's voice was gentle but firm, and it gradually made me relax from the tension. I could no longer control my emotions, and tears welled up in my eyes. "Tom, I really regret it. I'm sorry. I almost destroyed our family," I said, choking with emotion. Tom patted my back gently and comforted me, saying, "What's in the past is in the past. What's important is that we face the future together. I don't want to lose you. I hope we can go back to our old lives as if none of this had happened." Listening to Tom's words, I was filled with gratitude, and I vowed secretly that I would love him well and cherish our marriage in the future. Since then, I have tried hard to get over this painful experience and return wholeheartedly to family life. Every morning, I would get up early to prepare a hearty breakfast for Tom. Watching him eat the food I made with satisfaction, I also felt an immense sense of happiness. In the evenings, I would sit on the sofa with him, chatting about the work and life of the day, sharing each other's joys and sorrows. We would also go to the movies and take walks together, rediscovering the sweet feelings of being in love. At work, I also deliberately kept my distance from Jack. Whenever I saw him, I would be reminded of his hypocrisy and deception in the past, and my heart would fill with disgust. I devoted more energy to my work and tried to improve my abilities. My colleagues gradually sensed my changes and treated me with more respect. However, despite my efforts to return to normal life, the experience still came back to me from time to time. Whenever it got quiet late at night, I would always reflect on my actions alone. I kept asking myself why I had lost myself in my marriage and why I had been carried away by fleeting passion. I realized that I had gradually lost myself in my married life, putting all my energy into my family and husband and neglecting my own needs and growth. When Jack came along, the newness and excitement he brought made me lose my way and forget my responsibilities and obligations. I also reflected on my relationship with Tom. Although our marriage has always been happy, I didn't realize that in the ordinary life, we also need to constantly create surprises and romance for each other, and need to communicate and understand more. I decided that in the future I would pay more attention to emotional communication with Tom to make our marriage stronger. Once, Tom and I went to a friend's party together. At the party, seeing other couples in love, I couldn't help but think of my own ridiculous experience with Jack. I held Tom's hand tightly, filled with gratitude. I knew how lucky I was to have such an accommodating and loving husband. As time passed, Tom and I grew closer and closer. We spent many happy times together and faced various challenges in life together. I discovered that true love is not a momentary passion, but rather a mutual support, understanding, and tolerance in the ordinary life. One day, when I was sorting through old things, I found an album of our wedding. Looking at our happy smiles in the photos, I felt a flood of emotions. I showed the album to Tom, and we reminisced about those good old days together. "Tom, thank you for your companionship and tolerance," I said, looking deeply into his eyes. Tom smiled at me and said, "Lucy, we are husband and wife, and we must support each other for the rest of our lives. I believe that our future will get better and better." At that moment, my heart was full of anticipation for the future. I knew that after the storm, our marriage would become even stronger, and our love would become even deeper. I would cherish the happiness in front of me and never let any outside temptations shake our relationship. Since then, I have devoted more time and energy to my family and self-growth. I have started learning new skills and participating in various social activities to make my life more colorful. I have also become more attentive to Tom's needs and try to show him my love and care. As the days passed, Tom and I became happier and happier. Whenever I see his smile, I remember the painful experience and cherish the present even more. I know that life is not always easy, but as long as we have love in our hearts and the courage to face difficulties, we will be able to overcome the storm and welcome the rainbow. And I will protect this hard-won happiness with my actions.